Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Thank you everyone for joining us again. This is your host Punam here with a very special guest, Cristel and Sister Rini. We as wanted to just quickly remind we are doing this mindful journey together, mindful parenting journey, in fact. So, Cristel has joined us today to share her journey. And before I even ask questions, I will request Cristel to tell us a little bit about herself. Cristel, over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I am a coach. I do life and executive coaching. I also do, I'm a somatic practitioner in my spare time. And then for a day job, I'm also working in technology, and I've been in that space for about 25 years. So I have this interesting combination of really fast-paced, sometimes very stressful day. And then what I do for my passion work is very much around mindfulness, how to slow down, how to be present even in your own body again. So I've got that challenge I think most of us have on sometimes we know in our minds what to do, and sometimes we're not sure how to squish it into our days. I'm the mom of almost 16-year-old twins, and I have a little guy as well who is almost 7 years old. And just very happy to share anything about my journey and get your advice and views on things too.
Thank you, Crystal. Tell us, how did you manage your job, your private practice, and then, mom, twins, and then, third one? I'm sure it was not easy.
No, it's been a challenge for sure. And the easy answer is that I have a wonderful spouse. Which kind of makes everything else go a little bit better. We have a really great way of being able to trade off, and one of us picks up and one takes somewhere else, and we do those things really well. Um, the other is, I think I wanted children for about 10 years before we had our twins. And that really made a huge difference for me. And I'll share just very plainly that I'm a cancer survivor. And so through all of the treatment that I had had for cancer, doctors were like, you're not going to be able to have kids. And so knowing that it was such a long shot and how much I really wanted to be a mother, I think from the second I found out, I had an enormous amount of gratitude just to have a chance at doing this job, if you will, of mothering that I really didn't expect that I would get to have. And I think that, approach from a place of just deep gratitude has really made it a lot easier, especially when twins like to tag team and make it extra hard on you with different things.
Thank you for sharing that, Crystal.
Yeah.
So, how did you, first of all, digest that news when I was listening to you? Yeah, it was like not easy. In fact, my very good friend is going through recovery phase, but I
Mm.
saw her in that state. The whole family was kind of devastated. And then how did you become intentional, as you were saying, when doctor shared with you, you may not, but you believed in yourself, it seems.
Yes, so I'm a redhead, and a Leo and all sorts of other stereotypical things that tend to make you very stubborn. So I've had that on my side, just being contrary, and if you tell me no, I'll definitely make sure it happens. So I've got a touch of that. I really do. The biggest challenge for me, I think, has been learning to make time and learning to make space, because when you have an urgency or an exigent crisis like something like that. And it could be cancer, it could be someone losing their job and still trying to parenting. There's a lot of these challenges. You feel such a sense of urgency and nervousness about the future. How do you stay in the present? And I think that's one of the hardest things, because as we learn mindfulness and we learn to be more in the present, it means that we have to face some of those things. They're honestly a lot easier to brush aside if you just keep going and you stay really busy. So I'm still learning that, right? How not to push through sometimes.
Thank you. Sister Rini, would you like to guide us what Cristel just said? Not to push through, but sit with it and how to deal with it gracefully.
Yeah, actually, Crystal, you are very determined, not stubborn. That's what I would say.
Thank you for that.
And about always having thoughts about the future, because we do need to make sure that things get done in time, and yet at the same time, how to stay present, right? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of really helps me is that not to fight with my thoughts. And you're already doing mindful training, right? And you're a coach. So you would, I'm sure you already know that fighting with the thoughts and fighting with our emotions actually makes things worse. It makes the storm even worse, right? So for me, one question that I ask sometimes, of course, there are different methods at different times, but one thing that really helps me is, what if there was no next? There's just one question. And just this one question kind of brings the mind back to that timeless presence of who you are and puts things in perspective. Otherwise, what I find is if I don't ask that question, and it's just a question which is a pointer to your timeless truth, it's like, what if there was no next? All there is now. Nothing more to it. Because it is what I am knowing and feeling and believing myself to be is what is going to go in the next moment, anyways. So why not I just know what I am right now, because then I'm not living in resistance to what is now and wanting to be in the future somewhere, which is right now just in my imagination. So kind of, does it make sense, Crystal?
It makes complete sense. And I think Poonam brought this up earlier too, is that fear and anxieties about the future, whatever you want to call it, it does create additional resistance. So you don't have only the resistance of this moment, or like, say, for example, you have a toddler who's having a tantrum.
Yes.
You have that, but when you're also fighting with yourself, your emotions, you're really doubling or tripling what's going on in that moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And which is why it's like, I think what I have found in experience is your children remember the most of how you are staying calm in the midst of a storm. They don't remember your words. They don't remember anything that you say or you try to do, maybe superficially being calm. What they remember is what it's something which is very invisible, but somehow very palpable. And they feel that the way you were feeling in the midst of all of that. And that's what they remember and that's what they take. They're very sensitive. That's what I've found. So for me, when they see you, I mean, not because I'm trying to show it to them or trying to model it to them on purpose, but if you in general are in touch with the background of peace behind the cacophony of experiences throughout the day, at the level of the mind, at the level of the body, at the level of the situations, But if you're staying in touch with the peace, like just a simple example, like having a conversation with my sibling, and let's say my daughter is just sitting there and doing her thing, and I'm talking to my sibling, and my sister, let's say, says something to me, and you are just kind of taking a pause and checking the emotions that are coming up, and you're just kind of from that place of the background of peace that you are behind this emotion. You have not disappeared just because emotion has come up, maybe of some resistance, some reaction, or some judgment, whatever it may be. But I am in touch with the background of peace I am. And you come into that conversation with them from that place of peace. I find that peace that you were feeling is more communicative than any words that you were speaking or nice words that you were talking to your sibling. But your daughter is just overhearing the entire conversation out there, but she's really feeling what you are feeling. So I really do find that for me, this one thing, there is no next. Next is only in my imagination. And even if my mind likes to think about next because it wants to plan, which is fine, we do need to plan. And if it wants to plan, the one who's going to carry out the plan is the one that is me now. And if I'm coming from that place of peace, then the next will also reflect that piece of who I am.
Yeah. I love when you say that. And it's Punam and I were talking the other day about when my youngest was young. We used to go for this walk around several blocks all around our neighborhood. And we got about midway and he just lost it. It was just one of those days, right? And he's crying and he doesn't want to go forward. Well, it's equal distance for us to get home, whether we turn back or we keep going, right? And so we're at this place, and you know this moment as a parent when part of you almost feels that sense of embarrassment, like my child's behaving this way, cars are driving by, people are walking and staring at me, and the interesting thing was it was almost like an out of body experience for a moment where I had this, I think people were staring at me because I wasn't doing anything. And so there's a storm drain that's just a little bit off the street, and we used to check and see if there were alligators or kittens or whatever in the, fun things to do on a walk. And so I just said to him, I'm like, you don't want to go on? I don't either. Let's just stop. And the two of us sat on that storm drain for probably 20 minutes. I mean, he just cried himself out. People were staring, and I was just like, you know what? There's nothing more important in this moment than him knowing I will stay with him in this space, the space of ugliness, not behaving, darkness, frustration, and I'm not going to fix it.
Beautiful.
And it was amazing. And he got to this point where he kind of he stood up and I said, "Are you ready?" And he said, "Yeah, I want to go home." And he grabbed my hand and we went home. And it was a really interesting thing for me to also learn that I don't always have to jump in to fix it. Kids have to learn, right? Like how to regulate their own emotions, that it's okay to step aside and process. Um, but when you're connected with your peace, that's what really brought that memory forward for me, Rini, is that if you have that daily touch point, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, your yoga practice, whatever it is easier for you to sit there in that moment and be patient when, especially as a mom, your heart hurts so bad when they're crying, but just hold a hand, just be next to them. And I really hope that that's a feeling that he takes forward. Um, just knowing that even in those really hard times, there's no reason to abandon each other in those moments.
Absolutely, so beautiful. Your your sharing reminds me of this one small clipping somebody had sent to me, a small clip, and it has a mother at the railway station with her son, and the son is crying his heart out and screaming and shouting. And then there's an old lady who passes by and she says, "Back in my days, we did not allow our children to behave this way."
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, the mother says, um, that is why they need therapy today. And so,
This is so true. This brings up a question for me, if you don't mind. I grew up in a military family, and I'm of that Gen X that's very used to just take care of it yourself, whatever it is, get through it. And I do sometimes feel this tug of war between sometimes I want to be able to say to my child, like, just do it. You got to do it. Just do it. And the other half of me that is very well trained in this kind of area and understands how to motivate children and how to let them move in their own pace according to their strengths. What do you advise for folks, or put them to, even in your experience, what do you do when you have that inner conflict as well about how to parent in that moment?
as you said very beautifully, Cristel, that at times you want to discipline them, and at times you want to allow them to make their own mistakes and learn from it, and how to draw that balance. Of course, it requires some sensitivity from the parent, being in touch with their own truth. And and of course, there will be times we will feel I could have done it better in retrospect, right? Because there's no such thing as perfect parenting. And so what I find is that where I find that if my emotion is what is making me want to come into action, and as you said, that you don't want to fix them, they're not wrong as they are, they're perfect as they are. This is their current state of mind, but it's not who they really are. If I'm coming from that space, I find even if it's the words of discipline where you're setting up some boundaries for them, I think there will not be that force in it, but there will be a loving, understanding intelligence in that discipline.
Mm,
That's what I find. If I'm coming from that space of this is the boundary and we don't cross this boundary, but there's no anger mixed in it, there's no fear or insecurity mixed in it. And that's where I find doing one's own internal checking becomes very important. At least that's what I have found. Because whenever I have acted through an emotion, I have always been, I mean, I've always got a reaction back. Ego interacting with ego, and it's always a reaction. So for me, it's one thing I've always found that whatever their current experience, current behavior, current attitude is, it is exactly how it should be. Nothing wrong with it. So, because the moment there is this subtle attitude of you're wrong and I need to tell you what's right, somehow they catch it.
they do. That judgment, it comes through.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, it is the state of mind right now. And I too have certain times when I have these states of mind, but I know my truth prior to it. And I can see your truth also prior to it. So let's see if we can play around with these things. So, kind of in a playful manner, sometimes if they're at a younger age and they're not open to reasoning, so kind of just in a playful manner, like I was sharing once with Sister Poonam, and I think on in one of the sessions only, where when the kids were younger. So I would be like, if they came back from school and they didn't want to eat their dinner because they were very upset with how their friends were treating them at school, and they were feeling very lonely, and they just wanted to shut themselves up in their bedroom and don't want to see anybody.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm sure all mothers and fathers are familiar with this. So we would be like, not crying, but if they happen to step out of their room or if I happen to go to their room, we would not make it a very uncomfortable feeling around feeling lonely or feeling sad, but we would be like, oh, so loneliness is coming to dinner with us today. So kind of in a very playful manner. So
Oh,
that
I
they
love
know,
that.
yeah, so it's like that they know that there is nothing wrong with feeling lonely and they're not doing anything wrong with not wanting to have dinner, but at the same time, it's okay to come to dinner with everybody whilst feeling lonely or whilst feeling upset or angry about something. So you don't have to be in your perfect state of mind to be with all of us. So
Mm.
I found that, yes, at times there is some firmness also needed, and that is where the parental sensitivity is required.
Mhm.
But from the sounds of it, you're very aware of it already, and and you know that just like we are not perfect at our human experience, nor are they, and we don't expect that from each other, and we allow each other's imperfections to be celebrated also. And at the same time, if they need some discipline, I have disciplined them also at times, but depending, sometimes it's playful, sometimes it's firm, depending what was the need of the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this playful element that you've brought into it as well. And it's one I try to use as well. It's I'm gonna say like the beginning of the pandemic, I think I had my kids were home for like they were homeschooling and I was working full time and they're in my house with me all day. You know, and we're fighting over the internet, right? The bandwidth and all of this. And there were so many times because I was available to them, they could see me. They would bring, some of their own arguments and little things to me while I was working, because it's very hard when you work from home to draw some of those boundaries. And so, most days I work in the world of IT. And so we actually established a priority 1 through 5 system in the house. And it was very playful, but we talked through, okay, well, what's a P5? That's a very low priority. P5s can be, what's the SLA on those? We can talk about them after school, after work, those types of things. And then just listening to them joke about what really constitutes a P1 or a P2. And like, those are the things you're allowed to interrupt me during a meeting for. And having those examples. And this went on really for about 2.5 years, that the kids would, even at the dinner table, go, I have a P3, you know? And it was so funny, but it was just a very easy way of helping them determine the priority, because I found myself saying in my own mind, whatever they're interrupting me with is not important because I'm on a call with VPs right now. And then I was really horrified that that was my reaction. I was like, why am I judging how important this is when I can get them to start to learn to communicate how important something is to them? Is this one that I need to mediate? Is this one they can figure out with a council of their peers, right? Like I said, it went on for about 2.5 years until it just sort of phased out, like many things with kids. But I feel like I can do a lot for my children, but one day I won't be there. And so everything with them is, how do I get them confident that they can do it themselves? Whether it's mindfulness, discipline, figuring out priorities, communicating wants, how do I help them develop that so that they don't need me?
Sister Poonam, would you like to say this is beautiful what she's sharing here?
Absolutely beautiful. So I will tell you one story just happened this morning. My daughter came home last night and it was almost midnight and she had a meeting this morning, 8 a.m. Dad was concerned, oh, she's still sleeping and her meeting is about to start. Then I was just like, Daddy, it's okay. Let her be responsible. She's an adult. She knows. She told me in the night itself she has 8 a.m. meeting. So the balance and, when to give them that independence and not to give, right?
Mm,
Discipline or limits or love or law. So it was not a big deal if she missed her meeting, but I knew in my heart she is very responsible. She will get up on time and she will attend that meeting. In fact, she did, and I gave a little note to daddy, loving and detached, right? We do not need to poke our nose every time, everywhere. As you were saying, let the child be independent, confident, and communicate. All these life skills are very much needed in today's world to be successful. I fully agree with you. Even tomorrow, if I'm not there, I feel my parenting journey taught them a lot, and they will be confident, independent adults. They need to be.
mhm,
So I think believing in your own parenting, keeping that self check on your inner world, giving that loving vibrations and kindness to them. We don't need to even say words. That's what I'm experimenting and experiencing right now.
mm,
My state of mind is reaching to them. So I'm very calm, peaceful, no worry for the future. Let it unfold one day at a time.
mm,
So with Sister Rini, rather I'm thinking one moment at a time. What is next moment? Do I really need to think? It will unfold. I just
mm,
need to be true to my own self. So that's what
mm.
came to my mind when two of you were beautifully sharing your experiences.
I love that, Poonam. And both of you have talked about what I view almost as like webbing, this connective net, and it's very stretchy. It moves to whatever shape it needs to be, but this webbing that we create, in any of our relationships, but especially with our kids. And I'm curious for either of you, have you had times where I don't know, maybe your kiddos, maybe it felt like they wanted to rip that webbing a little bit or to stretch way outside of it?
Would you like to give an example? I mean, to be more clear, when you say when stretching beyond the webbing, do they challenge it in their own way?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give one example. I think there are times when any child is going to sort of rebel against the house in which, or the rules in which they come up. And so, and I, this makes me laugh. I don't mean to be judgmental, but in our house, my children, so we've brought them up vegetarian. And so most things in our house, as long as it doesn't hurt someone else, are pretty permissible. So one of the ways that one of my children likes to rebel is by eating meat. And we're kind of like, all right, if that's what you want to do. Um, but it's really interesting sometimes, like the ways in which a child will choose to rebel in some ways, and how do you handle that dynamic in the household? Mm.
Yes. Sister Poonam, would you like to share first and then I can go?
Because we did talk about very same thing.
Really?
Crystal, amazing, amazing. Even in my house, we are vegetarian, rather like towards vegan. My daughter is vegan. My son, he like was vegetarian. Now he's out of the house and in a college, and he's cooking himself, and he wants to experiment eating meat. So how did I handle it? So again, like Sister Rini was saying, we are all beautiful the way we are, right? Like I'm not going to judge him, he is doing wrong or he is wrong, right? He wants to experiment. And I still respect him and I love him, that unconditional mother love, right? So my hope is one day he will understand pros and cons and he will choose the right path for him. I am not judging him, I'm not putting conditions on him. The funny part is he's going to be at home this summer and he was like little bit nervous, like he won't be able to eat meat because mom doesn't cook, or this house we don't. So he was like, mom, is it okay if I eat egg? So he told me, I respect your choices and I do hope you respect my choices. So it was beautiful conversation. But I did not stop him, I did not judge him. He wanted a separate pan from me to cook in his apartment. I gave him lovingly. So it is sometimes hard. Like in yeah, somewhere I was wishing like daughter is vegan. She has so much love for the animal world. Why my son doesn't? But I understood. He has his own recording, his own choices. But I would like to listen from Sister Rini what she has to say.
Yeah, in my case, actually, it was more before I actually started getting interested in knowing myself as a personality. The personality was a very angry personality that I had,
Mm.
and along with anger, and there are many other progenies of anger, right? Irritation, frustration, everything, and of course, children bear the brunt of it. And they did bear the brunt of it. But then there was a point in time in my life when I realized that I'm just not experiencing the happiness of who I am. And
Mm.
I'm expecting them to make me happy, I want them to give me what I already am. And because I'm not feeling what I am, I'm wanting them to provide it for me.
Yeah.
So, so that realization made me want to know myself, and because then I started getting interested in meditation and some teachings, and what I found was there was a lot of rebellion from my older daughter.
Really?
Yeah, and a rebellion was because now when she got angry or she got upset and she would say something and there would be no reaction from me. Because earlier I would react and she would get what she wanted. And
Yeah.
because she got what she wanted, then it was like, okay, now her identity is also kind of getting that reinforcement of
Hmm.
being able to justify her anger because mom got angry, so she can also justify her anger. And this
Yeah.
kind of feeding off each other like this all the time beforehand, before I understood this aspect of what something is here that I need to address, not out there. And then when I took this very seriously and I started to get more and more in touch with the piece of the being that I am, of course, emotions would come, but I would not react on it, and that would make her really angry. Yeah, it would make her
You,
really angry.
you took away her opponent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can see that. And you changed the dynamic, right? And so now the
Ex-
currency is different.
Exactly. The thing which was feeding her identity, and that is not being fed anymore. And it was like a death for the ego, right? And I could see that, and for it went on for 6 years like that.
Wow.
And she was like, she would find ways to make me angry. She would do things that would upset in general, and normally that would upset me. I mean, she would do everything to just get me riled up for
Yeah.
6 years. And I was like, you are my best gift. You have no idea.
Hmm.
Everything you do, you say internally, not that I'm saying it on her
Of
face.
course.
But internally, I would be like, okay, I can see all these emotions coming up, and to what extent can I really see them, as Sister Poonam said, detached but lovingly. And you are my gift in that sense. So I found that after 6 years, something happened in her life, some situation or something happened in her life, and she needed some help. And when she needed help, she just we were sitting in the room somewhere and she pulled my hand and she said, come with me, and she dragged me with her to the bathroom where nobody could see us. And then that's where she just emptied her heart out, and she said, mom, these are the things and challenges I'm facing. These are my issues. How do I deal with it? I know I don't want you to think you have won.
So that realization was there even in that moment.
Yeah, it was all happening all beyond words.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah,
They teach us so much.
they
I,
are my teachers.
I
They
say
are
the
my
same thing
yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
And, my youngest is almost constantly joyful.
Uh-huh.
I've never
Beautiful.
encountered another human like this who is so genuinely happy, really
Beautiful.
almost all the time. And it's such a great thing for me. Like, he slows me down in the best ways. He, he is what motivates me to get back down on the floor, to pick the Legos back up, to get my hands dirty, play with the bugs, all of these things, because his joy is so contagious. And as we get older, that is a choice that we make. Like, how do we want our energy to impact each other? Right.
Beautiful.
And really trying to figure that out is like when you walk into a room, you are part of the dynamic.
Yeah.
The way you walk into that room will affect other people, and some people even more so than others, right? Um, but kind of keeping those things close, or remembering when, it's um, times that Punam, for example, leads a meditation for us. She brings such peace that people want to be close to her, right? That's a choice. That's the work that you do, and a decision on what you want your impact to be. And there's certainly days where I don't do the very best job, and I invite my kids to let me know that. They do like to make fun of me, and that I have feelings wheels, the wheels that describe all the different feelings and what's inside, that have those on the fridge. And so they'll occasionally take the magnets off and go, which feeling is it? And they kind of tease me a little bit with it. And that's fine too, right? We're learning our own vocabulary with all these things.
Thank you, Cristel. So beautiful. I love all the aspects we are talking. Be joyful. Our kids are gifts to us. Have that open communication. The days we are not being our own self, they can remind us via maybe that wheels of emotions. You know, in fact, I tell you, like, my kids, I do give them full credit for making me a better version of myself, because I think I allowed them to say whatever they wanted to say, created that safe space for them. They told me many times, Mom, you're not being you today. Take a pause, deep
Mm.
breathe. So, in that respect, I think we are learning from each other. We are in it together, whether we know it or not. Right? So it's like beautiful relationship. It's not like I am the parent, you need to listen to me. No, it's both ways, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Awesome.
not against that webbing. It's very expansive to not be in a straight hierarchy all the time. I love that.
Sister Rini, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just one thing. I think when Crystal mentioned that they don't need me, it is not a small thing, because most of the time, I would not just say parent-child relationship, but all relationships in general. There's a very subtle desire of the need to be needed. And
Yes.
yeah, and that kind of keeps a relationship more entangled rather than being detached and loving.
Yeah.
And I find that that is such a great quality. Crystal mentioned that I don't have this need for them to need me, and because it's like my peace and happiness is not dependent on how you are going to be. My peace and happiness is independent of anybody, anything. So
Yes.
then they don't have that unconscious burden of being responsible for our happiness or for our suffering for that matter. So I think making them emotionally independent, and most importantly, emotionally and spiritually independent. Such a great quality, Cristel. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you. And believe me, I wasn't born with that one. It came to me slightly later in life. But and my daughter said to me a couple months ago, she's interested in going to school in France. And she said something, I'm not brave like you, Mom. She didn't think that she could do it. She wants to go to college, but just doesn't have the confidence. And I said to her, nobody's brave until they have to be. And that's just how the world works. And we're going to France. And so, she knows, and we'll be there next month. She's navigating, she's speaking, she's asking for what she needs. And I will I will create an opportunity for her to prove to herself that she absolutely is brave and she can do these things. And that's the kind of stuff where, I mean, that's obviously a really big one. You can't, most of my life, I couldn't afford to do something like that. Um, but that's how I want it to be. It's not that I did it for her or filled out the paperwork or any of that, but just to create opportunity for them to become whatever they want to become.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you, sister. Yeah, no, it was amazing conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed. And you are making her independent and confident. She has a beautiful mother. Wherever she goes, she will be successful. Send her with that confidence.
Thank you. And thank you so much, both of you. I've just so enjoyed being in your presence and chatting about motherhood and how we do all these things called, being human, how we do that better. Thank you both.
Thank you. All I can say is ditto.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every month, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we thank you so much for listening.